Hello and welcome to the Proptech Hot Seat on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Talon, the show where we explore trends and technologies driving innovation across the built environment. This show is brought to you in partnership with Proptech Ireland, the hub for innovators, investors, and indeed for industry leaders. I'm delighted to be joined by a returning guest in the Proptech Hot Seat today, Ralph Montague, Director of Arcdox and co-founder of the BIM Coordinator Summit. Ralph, you're very welcome back. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Carol. Great to be back with you and talk to
Um,
your audience.
Ralph, we are broadcasting 5 years this month, and I'm sure in each of those 5 years you have joined us to give us an update on BIM technologies and where BIM is in terms of digital adoption of across the construction industry. But for people who might not be familiar, let's take it back a step. You might just remind our audience, Arcdox, what it is that you and your team do.
Yeah, well, I suppose to give you a bit of my own background, I'm an architect and I've been practicing for 30 years in the industry, and I've seen over that period the evolution, I suppose, of the way information is produced and used through the industry. And obviously, BIM became a big part of that maybe 15 years ago when we started Arcdox. We set up a specialist consultancy to help the industry embrace these technologies. So to move away from paper-based processes to digital processes, and so that's what we've been doing for the last 15 years, is helping clients, helping other architects and engineers and contractors to understand these processes, to embrace these ways of working in their own business, and particularly when they work together and collaborate on projects. So that's our core business. I mean, it's advisory services, and also part of it is training and support, helping upskilling people uh, to work in these ways. So that's our core business. And
Um, Ralph, I can remember in one of our very first conversations, you quoted a figure of a very low figure of somewhere around 8% of the industry was adopting BIM and other similar technologies. And it's a figure we're always trying to, for MMC Ireland, we're always trying to calculate the figure that of digital adoption within the industry in Ireland, in the hope of being able to almost benchmark that against global, not just UK and Europe, but also kind of global performance for real estate and building performance, to see where is the Irish industry in terms of its digital journey. You know, where is it? And you're never as optimistic as I am. So I think I might be surrounded. You know, I'm a little bit my thinking is colored because I tend to be surrounded by the people who are embracing innovation and technology. And you're never as enthusiastic as I am, or as optimistic when we're trying to benchmark where Ireland is. But I'm going to ask this question coming in as we start 2024. How is the industry in Ireland doing, first of all, and then how is that in comparison to the rest of the world?
yeah, well, I wouldn't say I'm not optimistic. I'm always a positive and optimistic person. It's just maybe I'm a bit realistic as well. And it's well, there's no figure. I can't give you a percentage because obviously there hasn't been any definitive studies of the industry recently anyway. But I would say in general, Ireland is well positioned. I mean, there's a portion of the sector that is very good at what they do, and they, you know, there's a portion of the projects that are being done in Ireland that are using BIM and using digital processes, and you know, and doing it in the way that's best in class. I mean, they would compete with the rest of the world, but that doesn't represent the whole industry in Ireland. So you know, and the majority of the industry, let's just say, are probably still using old school, outdated, paper-based processes. You know, and so you know, so it's almost like we have a two-tier system. I mean, there's people working on brilliant projects, doing brilliant things, and then we have a whole cohort of people that you know, when you say the word BIM, they think, well, what is that? Like is that board Ishkamara, the fisheries board? What are you talking about? Yeah, so
It's interesting.
I just recognize that there's
Yeah.
this dual relationship. But in terms of Ireland's progress, obviously in 2018, the National BIM Council of Ireland published its report about the digital transition, and that, let's say, went to influence the Office of Public Procurement, who set up a construction sector group with all the key stakeholders, and they set up a group under that with PJ Rudden, I can't remember the exact name, but it's like the innovation group.
The construction sector group, that's right.
Yeah, and out of that, there's a number of initiatives and projects that came out, and one of them was the Build Digital project, which was a project but supported by government to set up a research center to help the industry, basically. And so that's, I think, that Build Digital project, it's in its maybe second or third year, I'm not quite sure, but yeah, so Ireland is progressing and they are doing things. The government re-announced. I mean, yeah, it's been a bit funny because the government announced in 2018 that they were going to make BIM mandatory, and then nothing happened. And then, of course, we had COVID and everything went on the back burner. But they re-announced their commitment last July to implement a BIM mandate, and so that mandate has kicked in now. So it started in this January, and so all public projects going forward will use BIM. Now they're starting in January with projects of 100 million plus, and then they'll, over the 4-year period, they will implement it, and eventually all public work in Ireland will be done through BIM. But it's not just about BIM. It's also about how you measure costs and sustainability, because those are obviously the big drivers in Europe, is productivity and sustainability.
But
so
Ralph, even with that timeline there, and starting in January, 4 years to get to this actually encompassing all PPP projects, that's still putting us, what, 12 years behind the UK government. I mean, has enough been done to drive this at, I suppose, at a state level, at a governmental level?
Well, see, I don't work for the state, so I can't really speak what happens behind the closed doors of government. But there's not much visibility to the public of what the government's doing. So I mean, the structure of procurement in Ireland is you have the OGP, and they sort of set the rules through the Capital Works Management Framework, and but then each of the individual departments, like the Department of Housing, the Department of Education, Transport, etc., is required to carry out those rules individually. So it's hard to tell as an outsider whether the government have a collaborative effort, or if the government is just saying, look, we're implementing this mandate and it's up to you guys to figure it out. I suspect it's the second one, because that's kind of an Irish way of doing things. Is just say, look, this regulation's coming in, you guys figure it out.
Yeah. Well, look, this industry has shown itself willing and capable of leveling up when it needs to. And I think you describe it very well when you describe almost like a dual or a two-tier pace of adoption, and it's one thing that we've touched on here in recent months as well, particularly in the context of construction technology, that actually the gap between those who are doing it well, those who are, you describe them as that portion of the sector that are very good at delivering projects, and the projects they're doing are BIM enabled, but they're best in class in many different ways. But the gap that's emerging between those who are delivering at a best in class standard and those who aren't, I mean, is there a danger that gap is widening to the extent that some of the traditional players just won't be able to compete for public projects?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a real danger. for individual companies who are not thinking about this, or not thinking ahead. Like I think I don't know if I'm sure you've noticed this in other areas, but the pace at which technology adopts is rapidly increasing. So it's you might think, oh, don't worry, we've got 5 years to sort this out. I mean, if you look at last year and how AI came into the market, now AI is nothing new. It's been there for many years, but just suddenly in 1 year, everybody is talking about AI, and some people still see it as a novelty, like something you can play with at home or something, but other people are sort of building business opportunities around it and rapidly increasing their productivity to the extent that nobody will be able to compete with them.
Yeah.
So while some people are still looking at drawings in paper formats, taking like 2-3 hours to interrogate something, other people have connected all their data to a GPT, and they're literally talking to their building, like they're asking their building questions, like
You see,
in minutes. And the person who's dealing in the second way can't compete at all with the person who's doing it in this in a technology enabled way. So
but that gap, look, we know that gap is established, but I suppose what I'm really interested in is how the industry is rising up to that. We work across with organisations like MMC Ireland and Proptech Ireland and other community-based initiatives that are really driving forward. They're driving the industry. So they're not just responding to regulatory changes. They're not just responding to governmental mandates and guidelines. They're actually positively and proactively driving change. They want to see this best in class. They want to use the best technologies. One thing, something we've acknowledged in the past when we're differentiating between prop tech and construction technology is that actually the construction industry has always been better to embrace solutions if they can genuinely help with tight margins. So if they're shown to increase productivity, if they're shown to decrease costs, if they're shown to improve safety standards, if they're shown that new technologies can actually help them hit new ESG metrics, because you're touching on it very well there, that actually it's not just around cost, that you do have almost like that's two currency approach to construction. In the words of Bryn Griffiths in Turner and Townsend, he calls it the two currencies essentially of construction. It's cash and carbon. And data is what unifies those and actually helps make those targets achievable. So we know the construction industry will rise up, but how are you through, say, the BIM Summit, bringing people together?
Yeah, well, I'll come on to that, because to me that's always been the surprise, is that the discussion is in the construction industry, but the construction industry is involved in a very short period of a real estate property's life. It's 2 to 5 years is basically its involvement. And then it goes on to people who maintain and operate these assets for 20, 30 years. I've always been surprised that the people who have a longer term interest in physical assets don't have a more determined view about the information that's behind those assets. And so I suppose what we try to do in the last few years, build up a community to try and bring in people from outside the construction industry to the conversation. So clients, sort of what I call pre-planning consultants, people like quantity surveyors and project managers, and people who always sort of seemed on the fringes of the discussion of technology. ESG, sustainability consultants, like health and safety consultants, building operators, facilities managers, those kinds of people who were always outside the discussion, but who rely completely on information. Like you can't do a calculation about the carbon content of a building without the information.
Yeah. Well, now I would say though, Ralph, genuinely, there's a huge concerted effort, maybe not so much in Ireland, but certainly across the EU. There's a new EU Building Innovation Network, EU BIM, and they're behind bringing together innovators, solution providers, and the industry together from across Europe. And actually, at the moment, it's worth pointing out to anybody listening in who is developing a solution, the Global ESG Awards, which the European Building Innovation Network is behind. That's the inaugural Global ESG Awards are actually happening in 2024. The applications are open right now, and they're going to be open until the 31st of January. And the winners will be announced at MIPIM in Cannes in 2024, in March 2024. So there is definitely an effort to bring all of this data together
for
building
like
performance.
The European Commission fully understand the connection between digital and climate change. Like in the Green Deal, in all the policy that's coming out of Europe, the regulations, everything is driving towards the digitization and productivity. I mean, if you look at it from a European point of view, Europe can't compete with the rest of the world on labor costs. So it's got the most expensive labor in the world. So the only way we can compete is in being more productive with the labor, and that's where technology comes in. But also in terms of climate change, we can't keep building the same way we have for the last 100 years, because the construction industry produces more than 40% of the CO2 emissions. It uses 40% of the energy. It wastes 20% of the raw materials. So it's you can't continue like that, and Europe understands that fully. So I mean, and not a lot of people are aware, particularly in Ireland, of what's coming down the track from a European perspective. For instance, the construction product regulations in Europe are changing, and basically every material will have a digital product passport associated with it. So you won't be able to buy or sell a material without digital information about it under the regulation in Europe. I think just this January, the European Union have implemented some directives around sustainability reporting and due diligence, and obviously those directives are aimed at larger organizations, but in our industry, the activity of larger organizations always involves a whole group of smaller organizations. So a small organization looking at these directives might say, well, it doesn't affect us because we're not that big. But if you work for a big organization, you'll have to feed into their reporting. So you're not going to get away with it. Working with pieces of paper anymore. Everything's going to be data, and everything's going to be analyzed. And also the value. I think property value, at the moment, people see property value as the value in the physical property, but people don't value the information. But there's never been a piece of property that's been developed without information. Like there's no building. You've got a lovely picture behind you there, but none of those buildings have been built without information. You can't build a building without information, and none of those buildings can operate without information. So there is a value. It just hasn't been determined to the digital information that supports both the delivery and the operations of physical real estate, and I think people are beginning to realize that value and putting value on it. And
well, I think that's something that has been done. Like, you're right when you talk about maybe the lack of joined up thinking between when a building is going from, say, its capital delivery phase to then being occupied, and how it's performing over the lifetime. But actually, not just through legislation and funding, following actually some of the reporting requirements now, that actually we are seeing that change. But I think the construction industry and the real estate industry have not been very good at talking to each other. One builds a product for the other to either, buy, sell, manage, lease. but they haven't been very good at sharing information. So at one point after construction, it's closed off and then it's handed over, and then the real estate sector almost has to build a library about that particular building from scratch. And that's a waste of time, resources, but you're losing, as you said, the valuable information. But is there a bridge there? Like, is BIM the bridge that will take it from construction to using the same data to actually be able to manage this throughout the life cycle of the building?
Well, information is the bridge. BIM is just a digitization of the information. So information isn't new. Like, as I said, even the pyramids were constructed with information. Like the pyramids didn't just appear. There was communication and exchange of information that resulted in that work being done. So information is the bridge. What's happened with information over time is that technologies have digitized that information, from stone tablets to, ink on parchment, to paper, to pencils, to CAD. Like the technologies of producing and communicating or exchanging information have evolved over time. So BIM is just that's where we are in terms of that involvement. And it will go further. I mean, we're at a stage now where people are connecting that information to the physical through sensors and IoT devices, and they're coming up with what they're calling the digital twin. So there's a real connection between the physical and the digital in the digital twin idea, and people are also beginning to connect the data to value. So the property value, which is held at the moment in paper documents or contracts and whatever, will be digitized. So the digital ledgers is what people are talking about for the last few years, where every real asset has a digital token of value on a public ledger that everybody can see and appreciate and trade, etc. So, but the bridge between all these things, all these fascinating ideas, is the information. So BIM isn't the problem is, and the reason why we started this community is, BIM has always been on the niche, on the outside, as if it's a nice to do thing, if you have the time or whatever. But actually, we could do without it. But actually, the reality is, you can't do without information. You can't do anything without information. So it's more central than most people would realize, and they need to get their heads around it. Everyone.
I think yeah, no, that's a great way to position it. And I suppose I'm conscious of time today, so I know we only have another few minutes left. But one of the things I do want to touch on is, we talked about community, and I'm really interested to know, when we look at technology, what job the technology does is usually only part of the conversation. There's a whole cultural shift that needs to happen to actually create the change that prioritizes the digital approach. And that's something that I think maybe has been underestimated in the construction industry in Ireland.
Absolutely.
So
you
might
said
just
it yourself.
talk about that.
To each other. You have all these groups, and they're all doing their thing, but nobody's coming together and talking to each other. So the bringing together of people to get them to talk to each other is so important, and that's what community is about. And that's what we've been trying to do for the last 3 years now. We're trying to bring the clients, and bring the designers, and bring the contractors, and bring the operators, and bring the project managers and quantities of it, and all these people with different interests, and bring them together and let them start talking to each other, trying to come up with a common language between them so that they can understand each other. And the underlying thing that holds them all together is the digital information that they all need.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about collaboration, look, we read the word collaboration in every document that comes from every government department, and I think we all know that means very little on the ground. Whereas actually, I do see some great examples of it. So bringing people together, that's good in theory. What does that look like on the ground for the Irish construction industry?
Well, I suppose I can't speak. I don't see anything in Ireland really. My view, I mean, this is maybe going back to my pessimistic, realistic. I don't know whatever you want to call it. I see lots of groups. I see groups like MMC Ireland doing their thing, and Green Building Ireland doing their thing, and Lean Construction Ireland doing their thing, and yeah, I see lots of groups focused on their thing. But those groups are not collaborating. They're not coming together. They're not
Do
talking.
you know what? I'm going to have to, I'm
And
going to have to put that myth to bed, because actually that's genuinely not the case. In fact, only before Christmas we had MMC Ireland working with the Irish Green Building Council to deliver something, and they were both working with Construct
great.
Innovate in the University of Galway. So actually, and in fact, Property Industry Ireland, that's part of IBEC, was part of that as well. So we're seeing a huge breaking down
Well, I'm
of
excited to
silos
hear that because that
across
hasn't
modern
been the
methods of
case for
construction.
many years. So it's
Yeah.
really it's exciting that that's happening eventually in this industry, that people are coming
But
together
Ralph,
and
it's
talking
not
things. But
just it's not
yeah,
just about being exciting. The reality is this sector, this area of focus is being very well resourced by the state right now. So actually, it's so important that the industry uses its voice to make sure that when the state recognizes the importance of this and is willing to resource it, there's money made available there, that actually that funding is
I
going
wouldn't
to the
say
right
it's well
place.
resourced because I mean,
I believe it
if you
is.
take Build Digital Project
Mm.
as an example, I mean, the state put 2.5 million in over 5 years. Like for the sector that delivers, is it 30 something billion um, of output each year? It's really a drop in the ocean, you know, if
Oh,
in
but
terms of
Ralph,
trying
you're
to get the big.
looking
But
genuinely, you're looking at one very small piece of the
yeah,
much wider
yeah.
ecosystem. And quite frankly, I'm not going to load on the criticisms that that particular project got in the media in 2023, but I really don't think that can be hailed as one of our star performers. That has not been one of the success stories out of the
Yeah.
journey towards innovation and digitization of the construction sector. So I
Yeah.
think it's really important that we
But I suppose
separate that
what
out.
we've tried to do in the last few years is take more of a global approach.
Mm.
I mean, Ireland, we'd like to see Ireland position itself in a global context and not just be introspective. So we've tried to establish a community, a global community of people on this subject, bringing people from all parts of the world together. And so that's what our community around the BIM Coordinator Summit is. The summit is just an event where these people come together once a year, but actually the community that is coming together 364 other days of the year from all parts of the world, bringing expertise uh, together, because there's countries that know a lot more than us in Norway,
Yeah. Actually,
Singapore,
I
whatever.
think
And
that's a
by
fantastic
getting
initiative.
those
Yeah.
conversations going and the sharing of knowledge, um, but involving Ireland in that bigger picture, and allowing people in Ireland who want to position themselves in a bigger picture, is what we're kind of focusing on at the moment. So
I think that's one of the really good, strong initiatives that's happening at an industry level, really towards building community. So I suppose very briefly, you might just explain what BIM Heroes is, that particular initiative, because I think it's something that could be a really powerful tool to actually get a conversation started within the industry and help build momentum in a positive way, that we're not just responding to regulations and we're not just responding to external drivers, but that actually you've got the industry on the same page, focusing on delivering best in class. So talk to us a little bit
yeah,
about BIM Heroes.
yeah. So BIM Heroes is about bringing leaders together. So that I mean, the heroes we've created this narrative of the hero, which is the type of person that is willing to confront and face a challenge and not run away from it. You know, so it's people who like that. So we're trying to bring those type of people together, the leaders, people who are really driving innovation, driving forward. It's a small minority of the world is in that category. Like if you look
Mm.
at you know, the adoption of innovation normal distribution curve, like the people who are in the sort of innovative and early adopter category are probably, you know, less than 15% of the world.
Yeah, but
other people
Ralph,
are
that
followers, but we want to bring these people together. We want to get
yeah,
them talking to each other. We want to get them to share knowledge with each other across regions, and that way we feel that we will get BIM away from this niche conversation and
yeah.
make it more central to the way real estate, well, not only real estate, all the whole built environment operates. I mean, the way the built environment operates at the moment is very poor. It's too costly, both financially and environmentally. It's too slow. That we across the world we're not delivering enough infrastructure for people, not enough delivering enough housing or education. Even in Ireland, we say we're a first world country, but we don't have enough housing. We don't have enough schools. We don't have enough hospitals. We don't have enough infrastructure to support our economy. So yeah, the industry is just not functioning in the way it should, and we want to bring the leaders together and say, well, how can we solve this? I mean, we know we sort of know the answer. The answer is to improve the way we do things through the use of technology, but
Yeah.
we need to work out the practicalities of that, in a concerted and collaborative way. So that
Well, I think what you've done through the BIM Coordinator Summit, and look, I fully acknowledge what you're saying there, that's kind of one day of the year, and actually the real work, the heavy lifting of this is done kind of all of the other days of the year, and I think that's a great initiative. But what we'd
we
love to
created
do
a
is,
platform actually
yeah,
where people can come together. It's almost like a LinkedIn, but it's a dedicated platform where people can have discussions, meet each other, converse with each other, share knowledge, discuss the knowledge, because somebody might share something and some other people would say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Yeah. So, and it's fascinating to see what's coming out of it. And we've purposefully tried to create a space for everyone. So there's a space for clients to discuss things like legal matters, how procurement works, etc. There's spaces for project managers, quantity surveyors. Like everybody has a place where they can do their thing,
fantastic. And
but other
I'm
people
sorry,
can look
Ralph,
in.
apologies. I know we're really short for time
Yeah.
today. Just very briefly, how can people find the information for that and get involved?
Yeah, bimhero.io. If is
Super.
the you join the platform and look around and find your space, find your people, connect with
I,
people, and
I love that. Yeah.
transform your business, transform your economy, your projects, and make things better.
Make things better. That's the crux of where we need to be at. So that's a great suggestion there. Log on, find your tribe. This is the value of community, and it's something that we really appreciate. So well done to you and the team for pulling that together, because I know there's a huge amount of work goes into it. So well done, and we encourage as many people as possible in the industry to get involved. That's all we've time for today. Thank you for joining us. That was Ralph Montague, Director of Arcdox and co-founder of the BIM Coordinator Summit. My thanks to producer Katie Talon and to the audio team at Hear Me Roar Media. Before we go, just a special word of thanks to our sponsor, Proptech Ireland, for supporting the podcast and for making these conversations possible. Also, thank you indeed for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Proptech Hot Seat. In the meantime, please be sure to check out all of the other Irish and international real estate and construction shows here on iProperty Radio.